unmute and unmute themselves. Please continue to use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. City staff will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the Transportation Commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joe. Aiden, if you call the roll, please.
Charles Miazza.
Present.
Barbara Harrington McKinney.
Present.
Chris McCahill.
Here.
Ann Kovich.
Here.
Denise Jess, who I don't see at this time, but she will be joining us later. Robbie Weber. Patricia Bennett.
Here.
Bridget Brown.
Here.
And then Bill Bremer, Harold Kleems, and Darren Wozniewski are all excused absences for tonight.
Okay, and Denise emailed us. She's teaching a class at the UW, and she was hoping to be here, but she wasn't sure if she'd be here right at 5. So we'll get started. Everybody have an opportunity to look at the minutes from the last meeting of April 13th.
Denise is actually here.
Oh, she is. Okay. There she is. We will add her in. Thank you. I'm on my tablet this evening, so it takes me, doesn't give me quite the expansive view that my laptop does. Okay, so we have 7, so that means 4 votes are needed to pass a motion. Okay, everybody have an opportunity to look at the minutes from the last meeting.
Move approval of the minutes.
Okay, I see a motion by Chris and a second by Alder Miazzi. Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, the motion is carried. Any public comment this evening, Aiden or Joe?
There is none.
Okay. Any disclosures or recusals this evening? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. Okay. We do have a consent agenda this evening, items 2 and 3. My understanding, Aiden, is that we do have a person registered for item 3, but they do not wish to speak. Do you want to just give us the details about that registrant, please?
Sure, yeah. Nicholas Davies of Richard Street, Madison, Wisconsin, registered in support for item 3, but does not wish to speak.
Okay. All right. Does anybody wish for either of the items to be separated from the consent agenda? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, so we have item number 2, Legistar 71220, and item number 3, Legistar 71368 on the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay, a motion by Robbie, second by Chris. Okay, assuming no discussion since it's a consent agenda, we'll assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. So please raise your hand. Okay, seeing no hands, motion is carried. Okay, item number 4, new speed limit, stop and yield signing work. So who do we have that's going to present that? I don't see Yang on. Sean, are you doing this? No?
I believe it was supposed to be Yang or Tom Moore. I think they might have another
Okay.
meeting currently.
Okay. Would there be any objection to us deferring item 4 until Yang joins the meeting? Any objections, please raise your hand. Okay. Seeing no objections, we'll defer item 4 until Yang joins the meeting. Item 5, Jim?
That'll actually be me, Aaron Canton with City Engineering.
Okay, Aaron, go ahead.
Share my screen. All right. Can you confirm you see my screen?
We can, thank you.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Canton, the street section of City Engineering. Today, I am seeking your review and feedback for the Bikeways 2022 path resurfacing list. This is part of routine path maintenance based on a biannual path surface rating, make sure we're upkeeping all of our existing path infrastructure. And our list for 2022, largely based on paths rated 5 or below on a 1 to 10 scale. This year includes some sections of the Wingo Creek path between Olin Ave and the J&D underpass, some sections of the Quan Park path along Olin Ave, sections of Warner Park path parallel to Sheridan Drive, some parts of the Sherry Park path, essentially finishing off from the Garver Path project from last year, sections of the Struck Canyon underpass path, and all paths within the Sycamore Park path. Here is a location ID for each area of path resurfacings. Go through some notes one by one. So some sections of the Wingo Creek path, example of which shown here, slated for resurfacing would be pretty standard pulverized in shape, matching existing width and drainage patterns. And then also in that area, sections of the Quan Park path along Olin Ave, similarly pulverizing in shape, maintaining existing. Some parts of the Quan Park path closer to J&D are a little bit narrower than 10, closer to 9 feet. So we'll look to widen that out to 10 feet as well with the resurfacing. Oops. And then on the northeast side of town, the Warner Park path connecting off of kind of the mainline path along Sheridan Drive to Woodward Farewell Drive. Path is in poor shape. So looking to do a full depth replacement of the path along the street here. It's currently closer to 7 feet. So looking where feasible to widen that out to a more consistent 8 feet. And then some sections of asphalt path closer to the railroad tracks are narrower and little space here. So we would replace that with concrete sidewalk. Is that makes a little bit more sense as it's concrete in between through the railroad crossing. And then the Sherry Park path, essentially here finishing off from where the Garver Path project ended, a few hundred feet stretch off of Wayne Street, matching the Garver Path with a full depth replacement here. And then the Struck Canyon underpass, this would be from Siebold Road to the underpass itself, the north side. This aerial is a little old. That was replaced with the Gammon Road project a few years ago. Here's a more recent picture of it. So we'd be replacing just the south side, full depth replacement here. And then lastly on the list is all paths within the Sycamore Park path. Standard pulverized in shape, maintaining existing width. Mainline path is 10 feet here. So seeking your review and feedback on that today, looking to bring this to the Board of Public Works for approval on May 25th, with a bid advertisement mid to late June, and then the actual resurfacings would happen end of August, September of this year. And I believe that's my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Comments or questions for Aaron? Bridget, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. I just have a couple of questions kind of related to some of the terminology that you used. So I know in some cases you mentioned resurfacing, in others replacing, and then maybe a third term, maybe it's the same as replace, but the full surface replacement. And so what I'm wondering is, are you differentiating? Does resurface mean that you're just doing some sort of like a seal coat, or what do you mean specifically by resurface?
Yeah, definitely. I could have explained that a little more in detail. So resurface, I guess, kind of the general term for it. The two main options would be a mill and overlay, where you're basically just like milling off the top 1.5 to 2 inches and then repaving new asphalt there. And then the other option, which works well for a lot of these resurfacings, would be a pulverize and shape, where you actually mill the top surface, pulverize it down, add it to the existing base, and then repave new asphalt surface on that. So you're kind of adding to your base. Works well if there's sort of the topography adjacent to raise the grade of the path a little bit. And then you have a little bit of restoration on the side. So in kind of the open areas like the park paths, like at Sycamore Park, that works well, and I think is generally cheaper too.
So in general, you're not doing like a seal coat type treatment, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
Thanks. Okay. So just looking at and experiencing some of what's out there on the paths, and just some of what I've experienced over the years professionally, I am wondering, what standard are you folks using for number of lifts and the depth of those lifts? It just looks like in some cases, and some of this may be because of the ground, it may be wetland or other issues, but it just looks like there is a lot of movement there. So I'm just curious, what is the depth that you guys are using basically for a standard, and how many lifts?
So I believe that one lift can't be more than 3 inches thick.
Correct.
Our standard path, cross section would be 8 inches of base course, road base course, and then 3 inches of asphalt pavement. So I believe most paths are paved in one lift.
Oh. Okay.
I can certainly find out more from some construction folks, but that's been my experience. Yeah, I think anything more than 3 inches would have to be multiple lifts.
Yeah, we've had some success and had a longer life, kind of playing around with some of those, and just want to make sure, of course, that we're trying to get the most bang for the buck, but also, doing this in such a way that is going to give it a long life. So yeah, any, kind of more detailed information about that would be appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. I can follow up and share what I learned from construction folks. And I think always good to try and learn or try out new methods as technology develops.
Thanks, Erin.
Okay, is that all you had then, Bridget? Okay, Alder Harrington McKinney, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Erin, my question is just a summary of the process. You indicated that these were repairs on areas with 5 below. And could you say more about that process and how do you arrive at that process? I mean, just I'm really interested in how you got there and what the process is. I hope it's not a real detailed question, but I do really want to know.
Yeah, definitely. So similar to street resurfacing, street rating, we have mainly one engineer in the office, Steve Sontag, goes out and rates all streets and all paths, I believe every 2 years for both streets and paths, and rates them on a 1 to 10 scale. And then we have basically, and I can speak from the path side of it, we have a master list of all paths and sections in the city and keep track of the paths that are rated lower. And I believe after this, all paths in the city will have at least a 5 rating. And now I will mention this is the engineering maintained paths. This wouldn't include all parks maintained paths, as they would be responsible for maintaining their own. there are instances where, there's an engineering maintained path and then some connector paths. For instance, at the Sycamore Park path, the connector paths are parks maintained, and the kind of main central path is engineering maintained. So we'll be doing all paths in the area and coordinating with parks on that. But that's as far as I know from the path rating system. I can certainly ask the engineer who sort of runs that more. I'm not sure if any of the streets principals are here today, but they could also speak on that.
Okay, good answer. And so at some point, it was interesting that there is an engineer and parks also do a similar assessment. And is it annually, or how often do you come together to really look at the overall concept of what the bike paths look like? That was my question. And how does the budget look? I mean, are there years where you don't have enough to cover, let's say, what you presented today, and if there had been more, what is that process?
So in terms of budget, we do what we can with the budget we have and focus the bikeways budget on existing infrastructure and making sure it's upkept. And then if, not able to include some sections that need resurfacing, it would be pushed to the next year's contract. And in terms of the parks engineering coordination on that, I'd say that's kind of a more by basis, as needed process. If we have a resurfacing in an area where there's a parks path adjacent, we would coordinate on that. But engineering is going to be rating and looking at, I believe, just the engineering paths.
And they do that every 2 years. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yes.
Is that all you had then, Alder Harrington McKinney?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Bridget, go ahead.
Yeah, at the risk of being nerdy about this, Ann's right. So in general, those ratings are done every 2 years, and it's actually a kind of a universal system. It's commonly called the PACER system. It's, I'm sure someone else knows, but Pavement Surface Evaluation Rating, I think, is what it's called. And so it's a system that everyone uses pretty universally. There are some tweaks to it in different parts of the country or with a local municipality, but it's a really, used just across the board. And for example, in Wisconsin, your PACER ratings help you determine, how much road aid money that, you get, and other factors like that. But real responsible units of government use it to help determine what their replacement schedule should be. And so the city is doing a good job of keeping up with that. And I really applaud that they are applying the PACER system, or what I'm assuming is the PACER system, to the pathways. Not everyone does that, but they're treating them just like a roadway, another, paved surface that needs maintenance. So really supportive of that.
Okay, great. Well, my understanding is we're here for just review and feedback. Does anybody have any other feedback for Aaron? Is that all that you need from us then, Aaron?
That is, yep.
Okay. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, great. Thanks, Aaron. We're going to go back to item number 4 then. I believe Yang is here. I think he had another meeting. So Yang, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Anne. And sorry, everyone, that we're running late. Tom Moore is tied up at the BPW for a project, and I'm also running late. But we have been doing an update for a commission on some of the major signage changes every year we do for a few years now. And so this is for 2021, a quick summary. So we tried to bring the item to the commission earlier, but due to scheduling issues, especially for balancing agenda, we waited quite a few months because this is not something urgent. But in 2021, we finished 1,600 signing work orders. So those individual work orders that we issue to our crew to do signing work. Some involve thousands of signs, maybe even hundreds sometimes for large projects. Some just involve like one individual sign. But for the major changes, we installed quite a few new stability signs for different projects. We actually had about 15 projects also that we reduced speed limit. So that's kind of one major change. Another major change is the stop sign for stop signs. We installed a few dozens of new stop signs in the city based on citizen requests and also based on changing conditions of neighborhoods. We reinstalled, I think, about 15 or so new yield signs in the city for the same reason. Public requests, also changing conditions. I think one thing that's really unique that I think we almost never done before, we actually removed a few stop signs last year. So that's something really unique. That's actually because order from the Railroad Commission, actually. That's for Southwest Path that we used to stop the traffic on that streets. So, path traffic has a priority. So we have done that for quite some time. And but I think the railroad found about it, and the commissioner ordered us to remove those. And that's an order as we communicate by email with all of you in a memo that we have to do it. But we haven't given up the fight on that. So we hope one day that we can persuade the commission that this actually improve safety instead of compromise safety. So we'll keep work on that. Hopefully, bring those stop signs back in the future. So that's a quick summary of the changes and. I'm wondering if anyone has any questions. After that, I also want to discuss with you on some ideas that the city staff has on how to handle the process in the future.
And Yang, this is all within your authority as traffic engineer and within your department. So this is just an informational report, correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So it's a traffic engineering authority to do signing changes by city ordinance. Also, okay. State statute.
Mm-hmm. So, comments or questions with regard to the report itself? Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if you were going to walk through any of the specifics, but I was wondering about where you said you are. It sounds like you're starting to install more stop signs than maybe you had been in the past. And I know when projects came through the neighborhood traffic calming program before, and we talked about about stop signs, it often came up that they weren't technically a traffic calming method, but it does seem like strategically applying stop signs across neighborhoods sort of more frequently probably is an effective traffic calming method. So I'm wondering if that's making its way into the thinking at all, or what's going on.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for that question. So, that's actually some really great observations on the trend. You are right. I think last year we definitely did more, installed more new stop signs. And right, I think there are some shifting thoughts among staff that we used to be pretty consistent with MUTCD, the national kind of standards for install traffic control devices, and sometimes those are pretty restrictive. We still do things according to that, But as as Chris mentioned, that oftentimes for traffic calming requests, that we may not able to install speed humps and other devices, but the strategic place stop signs may help change people's travel pattern, influence their driving behavior a little bit. So yeah, I think you're right. So we do even though we still abide by MUTCD, but we do put more emphasis on being more flexible on stop sign placements.
Thanks. That's great.
Okay, other comments or questions on the report itself, the information in the report? Okay, Yang, you said you had some other comments for the commission?
Yes. So we have done this for I think about 3 years now, and so I got I heard some suggestions from staff working on this. I thought those sounds really good ideas. So I just want to check with the commission to see whether this sounds good to you. So we do think that it's a good idea to keep the commission informed, so you actually can see the patterns, things like that. And also, for specific locations, if anyone has concerns, we can look into specific those. But since this is staff authority, and for the past few years, we really didn't. I think the commission are typically agree with staff's work on this. So the suggestion is that instead of bringing this to the commission as a formal agenda item, so that the staff has to make time for this, and also we have taken your time to discuss this every year. We were proposing to email the report to the commission every year, and so keep you informed, and will not bring it to the commission as a formal agenda item, unless the commission, after looking at the report, wants us to bring the staff to be here. Then we'll make staff available and put it on agenda for one of the meetings. So I know the commission, this commission has a heavy workload. So hopefully this help reduce the workload of the commission agenda as well, and also help give staff even more time, so they don't have to come here to attend the night meeting if they don't have to. So just wondering, how the commission think about this suggestion and how we can handle it in the future.
So this is good timing. We're working on the TC work plan right now. Chris, your thoughts?
I think that probably sounds like a good idea. I don't know what other folks think, except that, so like, I think mostly we don't spend a lot of time on these things. And so it probably takes a lot of staff preparation that isn't needed, and maybe walking through things that we don't need to. I am wondering though, what would be the process for raising questions about one of these, if that was the case, rather than just sharing the information with the commission. It seems like there ought to be an opportunity to dive in if we wanted to. So I don't know if that means putting it on the agenda and just asking if anybody has any questions, and then leaving it at that. Or if that still takes just as much work. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I would think an alternative, Chris, would be to, email Yang with questions and, see if that, if the answers, if that email process works, and if it's something that people feel needs to be escalated and discussed in front of the whole commission, then that could be done as well. I think that part of the thinking, as you've seen over the years, anybody who's been watching the agenda, we've moved away from having just informational items on the agenda, and we're trying to distribute information to members offline so that you have an opportunity to review it and get the information, but we don't take up the meeting time, because we seem to have generated a lot more public participation. Like Mendota Drive is, an extreme example, but it's great. We have more public participation, so that takes up more time at our meetings, and that seems like a better use of the commission time. So it's always good to have discussions about these because, we learn something, we see the trends. And I guess it's a question of, is it a good balance to distribute it? And then, just bring it back if there is something worth discussing. Chris, go ahead.
I'll just respond quickly and then see what other folks think. But I guess to that point, part of the commission's role is to give the public an opportunity to weigh in on something. So, we could, just by putting it even on a consent agenda for a particular meeting, would give folks that opportunity if they wanted it.
So, Yang, that would be a compromise, rather than putting it as a formal, it could be an agenda item, but we would plan to bring it as a consent agenda item in the future so that it would be at the beginning of the agenda. It would save staff time from that point of view. And there would only be discussion if there was something, worthwhile to discuss or a registrant wanted to speak on something. So that would be something we could try this next year. What do people think about that as a midway step toward what Yang was talking about? Alder Miadzi, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I think sometimes too, when a city staff sees something that might come out through later on as a convoluted issue, I know that, like Lake Window Drive and so other, they had meetings, public meeting, engaging with constituents. I think sometimes if we have something, thankful that I'm able to look at other alders' blogs and see what, their meetings. But it'll be nice, like in the future, a lot of convoluted issues that have residents' engagement for us to be able to have those links available so that we can be more proactive before it gets here, right? So rather than be reactive so many times.
Are you clarify for me, Alder Miadzi, in terms of having information further ahead of time, you mean?
Yes. So like if there's an issue that city staff sees that might be coming before us, that might be one of those convoluted issues, such as we've seen before and other agenda items. So being aware of something rather than being here in this space and hearing it for the first time, then being reactive rather than being proactive. Like I heard about this, I actually attended the meeting. So being more, I guess, if I would say, like if there was a situation that we can engage in as far as watching something before it gets to this point.
Sure, we'll have to think about how best to do that. I think all of the city projects, Yang, the city engineering projects are on a website, are they not? With all of the meetings posted in terms of the public information meetings. So perhaps as city staff becomes aware that there is a lot of residents' interest, there could just be an email sent out to the commission saying there's a public information meeting on Lake Mendota Drive coming up on this date if you'd like to attend, or on University Avenue, whatever it is. Would that be helpful, Alder Miadzi?
Yeah, something like that. I'm just thinking about outside the box about being proactive rather than reactive in this spot that we're in.
Yeah, why don't you give that some thought, and maybe we can talk about it at an agenda meeting as to how we might be able to be a little more proactive where there's a lot of interest from residents.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely think that's a good idea. And I'll talk with my colleagues at engineering to see how we may be able to handle that.
Okay.
But that's probably for major project instead for signing work. So.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I think you're right. Absolutely. So would that work, Yang, to try the consent agenda next year and as we do the work plan, we can leave it in there, but say that it's proposed for the consent agenda on an annual basis, and try it that way for the next year and see how that goes.
Sure. Yeah. That works. Yeah. Especially we can put it in the front agenda, so the staff can attend, and if it passed on consent agenda, they don't have to wait for a few hours to talk about it.
Okay. Alder Miazzi, your hand is still up. Did you have something further? I'm sorry. Okay, Chris, go ahead.
I guess I just wanted to check with Yang one last time. Like, does that sort of help what you were talking about? Because I'm also in favor of staying out of the weeds where we don't need to go there. So,
yeah, I think if we do that, we still have to ask a staff member to make arrangements to attend the meeting, right? So that might have some interruptions. But if we pass on a consent agenda, it's probably it probably won't be a big deal. And sometimes also, right now I think we are tackling more and more things, and we have limited staff, so we sometimes kind of stretch out pretty thin. Just like for tonight, the staff working on this is covering a different meeting, right? And so sometimes it's a little bit difficult. So I think the easier we can make it, the better. But I think that compromise definitely works. Yeah.
Okay, and we'll have the work plan that will be on our agenda sometime in the next month. So we'll put it on there on the consent agenda, and we can certainly talk about it because I think it was a stated goal of the TC back a couple years ago to try and move informational only presentations off the agenda as much as we could because we have so much else that's taking up our time. So, but a consent agenda was one way that we have used to move things along. So this, Yang, this may be a sort of a mid-step to see how this goes. And we can see if it works for staff, and if not, we can address it again next year. Does that sound like a plan?
That works.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, thanks, Yang. Okay, next we have Cronky Drive. Reed, is that you?
Yep, I'm here. Can y'all hear me?
We can.
Share my screen. Great. Good evening, everyone. I'm Reed Steitley with CDMS and Engineering. One moment here while I share my screen. Apparently I have too many things open. Okay.
Always dangerous.
Yes. So tonight, bringing you an item to, I guess, put a motion forth to approve a speed hump to be installed on Cronky Drive with the ongoing street resurfacing and utility replacement project happening.
Reed, can I ask you? Can I ask you to hold for a second? Can everybody see that? Okay, it looks a little compressed on my screen. Is that better? Okay.
There, much better.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Reed.
I'm zoomed in a little bit more. If you have any other needs, just let me know. So again, Reed Steitley with City Mass and Engineering, bringing forth a motion tonight to install a speed hump on Cronky Drive with the ongoing street resurfacing and utility replacement project happening in the area. And just for your information here, got a little map. There's an ongoing street resurfacing project along Tanager Trail and Cronky Drive. This section of street that we're focusing in here is between Tanager Trail and South Whitney Way. Just so a little bit of information for where we're talking about. So during the process of developing the plans for the street resurfacing project, City Engineering mailed out a residential survey at the beginning of development and it was kind of a generic survey asking broadly some questions about storm drainage, a host of issues, to gather some information. And part of the survey also asked about the concerns of the neighborhood about some items, one being speeding. And through that process and the responses that we received and some other written comments, there was a majority of responses that we received indicated that speeding was at least a moderate to high area concern for the neighborhood. With that in mind, then we reached out to our folks at traffic engineering for their input and data analysis to see if we're experiencing a speeding issue on this section of road, or if it's just a perceived problem. And I'm going to switch over to the document that is posted as part of the agenda tonight. We received the speed data shown in this document. I'm not an expert in this, but I've been informed essentially the requirements for installing the speed hump outside of the project typically wouldn't have been met. There is some speeds, I guess, that are outside of where we're looking for or wanting, but the typical, avenues or checks for installing that speed hump weren't met. However, since we were going forth with putting plans together for the street resurfacing project, and due to other community members reaching out to us, we thought that this might not be such a bad thing to include, since we're kind of doing work there anyways. So that led to us city engineering sending out a second residential survey, directly asking the neighborhood was in support of the installation of a speed hump on Cronky, to be precisely clear, about what we're asking from them based on the responses that we had received initially. So with the speed data in mind, I guess here we're showing 11 cases out of the 151 vehicles observed over 30 miles an hour, which was 7.9% of the traffic. This was taken in September of 2020, which is the most up-to-date data. Kind of have that shown here. So most of our folks are staying within the speed limit. There's a couple of cases outside of that on the stretch of road. And so like I said, the question of the residential survey that we proposed was, do you support the installation of the speed hump at approximately 5725 Cronky Drive? And the responses that we received were, actually, this is updated by one since this was posted for the meeting. So there was 11 responses, 7 of them being yes and 4 of them being no. So of the responses that were received, 64% said yes, they're in favor of the speed hump being installed, and 36% said no, they're not in favor of the speed hump being installed. So we put that information to bring this before the board tonight, thinking that the majority of the neighborhood was in support of installing the speed hump, and that it was something that wasn't going to be as invasive since the project is already underway with resurfacing the street. The proposed location is shown here on this schematic. I'm going to switch over to the same schematic, just showing a little bit more detail here to help present the comment that was raised in preparation for the transportation meeting tonight by a resident. I think there was a public comment in support of a location that was different from what was shown or I was asked on the residential survey. So this is the location that we proposed. This location is a little off center from the center of the street between Tanager and Whitney Way, but it does meet some of the requirements for being away from driveway entrances and being downstream from the new inlets that will be installed with the project. So this is the preferred location that we're presenting to be approved, as it would be, it's closer to these new inlets that will receive the storm water before it hits the speed hump, or before it kind of goes around the speed hump in the curb and gutter, which if there's too much, that can sometimes lead to maintenance issues with ice damming, snow damming, and then things being blocked up around the hump itself. So that's where we're bringing this design as the preferred alternative. As part of the getting ready for tonight, there was a response or a neighborhood suggestion to have the speed hump move down approximately 250 feet to the west at this alternative location. This location, I drafted it in just to see the applicability of it. It looks like we can maintain access to the driveways, but there is also potential for maintenance issues with the utilities if with these manholes and storm structures and laterals close by. So we're still preferring the location that's approximately 17 feet away from the existing driveways and curb ramps, and is then closer to the storm structures that would help with that stormwater runoff. So that's all I have as far as the presentation and information to show you tonight. I guess.
Thank you, Reed. We will need a motion once we have discussion on this. Comments or questions for Reed? Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. So to clarify, it sounds like this is a repaving project that's already in motion, and the question is whether to fold in a speed hump that most folks seem to want or approve of while that project is moving forward.
That is correct. Yep, correct. The project is under construction currently. It's scheduled to be done around the, I believe, end of August of this year.
And what other stuff is already happening? For example, is the roadway being narrowed at all or anything?
Oh, sure. Sorry, that's a good point to bring up. So the street width for Cron Drive is not being narrowed. This is a street resurfacing project with utility replacements. So the street is going to be staying the same width. It's, I believe, 30 feet face-to-face curb and gutter, and we'll be replacing sanitary and storm sewer with the project, and also a short bit of water main on Lynette's court here. So with that utility work, there's not existing storm inlets on this section of street. And so we're installing those with this project. And those are shown kind of in this vicinity, shown by these boxes here. So yes, we'll be replacing the pavement and the road structure as needed. And so we're kind of digging up the road anyways, and the curb and gutter as needed. We're already kind of in that area and more or less pulling up that street anyways.
Okay, thanks.
Denise, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Thanks, Reed. A couple questions about the survey process, just to help me do some more learning. When you circulate those surveys, and I'm really grateful that you do, and then you did a follow-up one, what's the process for circulating those? Are they done, who are they sent to? Just the folks on the street itself? How are they sent? Are they pen and paper? Are they sent electronically? And then kind of related to that is, what's the survey response rate?
You bet. So as far as the methods for the survey, we did both a physical mailer that would be sent to the property owners, and we also set up an electronic survey monkey that was linked on our project website. So we received both physical and electronic responses from the neighborhood in this. As far as the area of mailing, it was essentially the residences that were abutting the entire project. So it also included residents on Tanager, by Meadowwood, Cronky, and Lynette Circle. So we tried to pull a fairly large width, since multiple, there would be more users than just people on Cronky using the street. As far as the response rates, I don't have that. The total, I want to say it was around 20% of all of the. I think we sent out around 50 and we got 11 or so back. Roughly in that area.
Okay, thanks. That's super helpful. I was curious. The 20% is actually better than I might have anticipated. So I'm also really happy to hear you're doing it on SurveyMonkey as well as pen and paper, because SurveyMonkey is accessible for those of us that use access technology. So thanks for doing both methods. So I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thanks, Denise. Alderman Yadzi, go ahead.
Actually, Denise covered my question, but I can piggyback on one more thing. How close, when you said that the city conducted its own matrix of how if there should be a speed bump, how close was it? I know you couldn't really interpret the logistics there, but how close was that to being? I know you said that it was concluded that it was not met. The matrix were not met in order to have it, but how close was it?
Sure. And Yang, if you have any information on this process, I was being helped with, Tom Moore was one of the traffic engineers that helped with the design of this project. From my understanding, during the, I believe it might be an older process now for finding if installation should be gone forth with. You needed 60% of the neighborhood responses to be in favor. And as far as the speed data, I don't know the actual the metrics that are required to pass that way. Yang, do you by chance have any information on that?
Thanks, Reed. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So by the way, as Reese mentioned, that we have changed the process to evaluate these kind of requests. So we used to handle this through the neighborhood traffic management program. And there is a set of specific criteria for that. So some of those are based on, how bad the speeding problem is. And some are based on, the character of the street. And it's also, we also added, equity considerations, such as whether it's in the NRT area. And and then we assign points to each request. And the old system require a minimum 30 points for a project to be considered. If we meet 30 points, we will bring the actual request to. We'll recommend the Transportation Commission to approve those. So if Transportation Commission approve those, then we'll go back to do a survey of the neighborhood, and making sure, as Ray said, 60% of the households on the affected area will support that, and then we'll go ahead to install them. So for some situations that the commission actually approved it, but the neighborhood voted down. For some situations that the commission, even though it meets 30 points, I think for some situations, for different reasons, the commission recommend that maybe delay the consideration of that or not approving it. And also for some other cases, even though it does not meet 30 points, when it's getting pretty close, when there are good reasons, also the commission approved those before. So it's, I would say it's mostly based on 30 points, and then 60% approval rate from the neighborhood. But there's some variations on that. So that was a previous system, but now we got rid of the system. Now, the program was integrated into Safe Streets Medicine program, because of the good work of the subcommittee of TC and TBBB on this. And we're evaluating that as all other different requests, such as a Vision Zero project, such as other neighborhood-related programs and safe school-related programs. So now we don't really actually have any cut dry criteria for this, but we start to speed study, and we'll give the commission idea how the situation looks like. For this case, even though you can see that definitely there's some speeding here, right? And it probably didn't meet the previous criteria, like 30 points, but you can see some speeding here. And since it's really easy to do the project along with the resurfacing project, that's why we kind of bring this in front of the commission for your consideration. We also consider other things in the decision, right? Such as whether it's a emergency route for fire and police, whether it's a bus route for metro. So if those happens, we will typically not putting things like speed humps. But Kanaki Drive, we don't have those limitations here. So hopefully that answers the question.
And thank you. I was just looking for you mentioned 30s, so I was just seeing how close it was if it was 27 out of 30. But since you brought up the real important details as far as speeding and other things, and this is pretty much obsolete, I guess there's no need to really talk about how close it was. But you brought up some very valid points, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, other comments or questions? So Reed, it appears that this location not only is best for maintenance, but also to reduce speeding as well?
Yes, this location was selected from engineering because it's a fairly central location based on there's a lot of driveways on this stretch of street. So trying to fit it in so we're not impacting those and other street features, and also its proximity to the new street storm inlets made it the forerunning candidate for this location. Yes.
Okay, so it appears it would improve traffic safety, and it would be efficient to do it along with the resurfacing project. So other thoughts from the commission? Is anyone willing to make a motion to approve the speed hump as proposed? Alderman Yazzie.
Approval of it as it is proposed.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve the speed hump as proposed. Denise?
Yep, I'll second it.
Okay. Alder Miyazi, did you want to speak to your motion?
I think city staff pretty much covered it. I think it did its due diligence as far as community engagement. So I definitely support this.
Okay. Discussion. Alder Miyazi, your hand's up. I assume that's just remaining from the motion. Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay, the motion is to approve the speed hump on Cronky Drive as proposed by staff. We'll assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. We could certainly have a roll call vote. Please raise your hand if you do wish to vote no or abstain. Okay, seeing no hands, the motion is carried. Thank you, Reed.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, you too. Next we have Zor Shrine. Would that be you, Sean?
That would be me.
Okay.
Share my screen. Are you seeing the PDF?
We are.
You've seen my inbox. Okay, my screens are all kind of wacky here. Okay, so this should hopefully be a pretty straightforward project. So what we have today is we're looking for feedback on the Zor Shrine redevelopment site. This is the CSM of the development. It's just north of the Beltline Highway. It's at the end of where Zor Shrine Place is currently. What we're doing with this CSM is we're acquiring a 30-foot easement for public pedestrian and path easement, and this is a section of the Westtown path that we're hoping to connect High Point and Gammon. So I have, I guess this is the Odana area plan, which was just approved last year, that shows, I guess, kind of the land use around the area for your information. Most of the area just north of the Beltline, where this site is, would be mixed use. The site is right here where my cursor is. This is the end of Zor Shrine. So it just kind of gives you a little picture of what's planned around the area. This is also from the Odana area plan that kind of shows the path connection in purple here. This is the pedestrian network improvements. So this is a planned off-street path. Currently at High Point over here, we have an underpass connection that goes, from under High Point onto High Point. And then Gammon, I believe it was last year, we installed the tunnel. So it's grade separated there for bikes. And this is just a piece of the connection that we're acquiring. This is kind of zoomed in here. Here's just another site showing where the project site is. It's High Point's over here, the Beltline's here. Westtown Mall, this is the back of it here. Most of the site, I guess, is kind of a grass lawn. Then the next slide I have kind of shows what the path is projected to be and what the development is. So proposals for the buildings are 5-story multifamily buildings. I believe that there's some mixed use component to it, but I could be wrong on that. And they're showing, where the future path will be on the site. So you can see on the south side, proposing 10-foot path. And then with their development, we're also having them build a connection from the end of Zor Shrine to the path. So that's just another way for people to access the path. I think that's pretty straightforward. It's just kind of a piece that we're acquiring, and then hopefully someday we can build the entire connection from High Point to Gammon. It's my understanding that we've applied for federal funding several years, but haven't got those funds yet. But when we do, that's when the PATH project will go forward. So right now, at this point, we're just asking development to dedicate the easement and grade the path to make it as easy as possible when we want to install it. So with that, if there's any feedback, I'd be happy to hear it.
Okay, comment or questions for Sean? I'm not seeing any hands. Anybody have any comments or questions for Sean? Alderman Yadzi, go ahead.
I guess what enacted this this need for this easement?
So the certified survey map came in. So previously they had one lot, so they had to divide the lots. There was subdivision. So with that, we acquired the easement as a condition of approval when they went through the Plan Commission with this proposal. So I guess the redevelopment triggered the acquisition of the easement.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions for Sean? It does appear to be pretty straightforward, Sean. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. Last call for any comments or questions on the Zoe Shrine CSM. Okay, thanks, Sean. Okay, next item on the agenda is the updates from the various divisions. We had pushed this off for a while because our meetings were so busy with some of the extensive conversations that we have on those large projects. So, Justin, do you want to go first with Metro Transit?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So I'll make this fairly quick, but obviously we haven't given this update in a while, so I've got quite a few things, and we've just got a lot going on. So first, a question we often get in these meetings is about ridership. So we are seeing strong returns. January, February were pretty rough, as you can imagine, with the Omicron surge. But in March, we were back to 71% of our 2019 levels. And actually, if you look that up on kind of a per hour basis, we were up to 81%. Because keep in mind, we still don't have quite the same level of service on the street that we did in 2019. So I'm very encouraged by that. That it places us definitely in some strong company. You know, many other transit systems are still hovering around the 50% neighborhood, and so I'm very happy to see this, and it actually is exceeding our expectations a little bit in terms of how quickly that's coming back. I don't have April data yet, but indications are that will certainly stay in that neighborhood. Update on several of our major projects. So our technology upgrade project is in final contracting. Hopefully by the end of the month, we've got a signed contract with that vendor. If you remember, that's already been approved. Then we can get started on that. That is about a 3-year implementation period. Just for your reference, again, it was almost $10 million of technology systems, replacing all of them on all 215 of our buses, as well as a lot of equipment in our facility, and then training all of our staff on all of this new equipment. And so it's going to be a big, heavy lift. But the team's working through the final details of the contract. Hope to sign that soon. The fare system implementation, we are reviewing proposals for that right now. We received 9 of them. We believe we're going to shortlist 2 of them for final vendor interviews and demos in June. So hope to see that contract approval coming to you probably in the July timeframe. And again, that would replace our entire fare system with a new account-based system that allows us to do a lot more stuff electronically, and also better enable a lot of low-income programs that can be better implemented for folks. So I expect to see the contract approval come to you probably in July. From there, once we get under contract, we'll have to iron out all the final details about exactly what the pass amounts or the fare cap limits are, time durations, just a whole host of implementation details that would come back to you all again for approval of those details. I'm guessing probably around the end of the year, just realistically. BRT, obviously, you all saw the plan approvals last or a couple of meetings ago, and so that's all moving forward. I expect to have our environmental clearance on the BRT project potentially even this week, but certainly any day now. We've already responded to final comments from the FTA. And then it's, we're kind of full speed ahead on finishing up the design plans and getting the thing out to bid. And so we hope to have some of the preliminary work started in the fall of this year to do some of the early work to prep for the bigger construction that would start in the spring of next year. The heaviest construction is going to be done in 2023, and then early 2024 would be finishing up a lot of the station details, electronics and final station furnishings and things like that. All preparation for a 2024 opening. Network redesign, that is going, it was actually introduced at council last night. That's going through the policy and planning board process. Just so you're up to date on that sequence of events, we'll present a draft plan with proposed amendments to the TPPB on Monday. We'll have a public meeting on next Thursday, a week from tomorrow, May 19th. We'll have a public hearing in front of the TPPB on May 31st. And then June 6th would be our TPPB deliberation and vote on the plan and amendments to recommend a package of amendments in the plan to council on June 7th. Just want to emphasize, though, that is a plan. It is not the final details. And so the process we're following here is that the Policy and Planning Board is approving a plan. Those details are, there's certainly some detail there, but there's a lot of missing detail as well. Start and stop times, time transfer locations, just a lot of bus stop locations, a lot of implementation details that we will have to finalize once that plan is established, because right now there's so many variables that we can't really do all of that work until those variables are narrowed down. As part of that final package will also include the detailed Title VI analysis, so the equity analysis to ensure that there's not disproportionate impacts to any particular groups. But again, we can't do that final analysis until the plan and all of the different variables are kind of narrowed down. If that analysis does show any adverse effects, we certainly will have to make adjustments to the plan. It is definitely not hard. We would not want to bring forward a plan to you that for implementation that has any sort of adverse effects on disadvantaged populations. I would expect that to come to you as TC probably in the time frame in the fall. I'm guessing in the October timeframe. Once that plan is adopted, and we've had a chance to detail out all the schedules and identify where all the bus stop changes are necessary and things like that, as well as do that equity analysis. On the electric bus front, we have 3 Proterra buses in our first 3 electric buses in the building are finally ready for deployment. And we're putting kind of the bow on exactly how we're going to roll those out. Most likely will happen in early June, but stay tuned for a press release around that as to when we're actually going to put them on the road. That project's been a long, arduous path to get through, but it really has nothing to do with the fact that they were electric. There were just some challenges with the bus itself, the bus, the non-electric part of the bus that we've had to work through with the vendor, but we've successfully gotten through all of that, and we're very nearly ready to put them on the street. And then, if you remember, as part of the BRT approval, also approved the buses for the BRT. We were successful, or it appears that we will be successful in the FTA increasing our BRT grant by $23 million in order to make the BRT fleet 100% electric. And that will require no additional local match. So that would be that incremental cost being 100% funded by the feds. So I think that's a huge win. I think that'll benefit us for decades. And I'm very happy it's all seeming to come together. Obviously, it's not until we sign the grant, which will happen later, probably towards the end of the year. Nothing's guaranteed. But in the FTA's annual budget request, they did increase our grant amount, or the grant amount that they are recommending for us to the amount that we're requesting for the electric buses, which means that it's pretty much a done deal at that point. And then on the facility front, our current phase of construction at our main facility at 1101 East Washington is still going. We hope to wrap that up hopefully in the next few months. And then we are starting to work on design for the next phase, which we hope will be under construction probably by the end of 2023. That will be the final phase to wrapping up the 1101 East Washington project, which has been 4 phases and $50 million to upgrade that facility that basically went 40 years without being touched. And so it's in the sections that have not been improved so far are in really bad shape. And it's exciting to see some of this get turned around. And our staff is very excited for having new facilities that don't have, sagging ceiling tiles everywhere. And it's badly needed. And we were fortunate to receive a grant from the federal government for $6.4 million, a competitive grant for that project, for that final phase. And so that's really going to help us, especially in light of the inflationary pressures are, as you know, going crazy. And so we would have otherwise, without that grant, we would have expected to see a cost increase to the city. But with that grant, we were able to offset that and actually still have a slight cost decrease for the city. And Alderman Yazzie, thanks for Alderman Yazzie came for the press conference that we had there to announce that grant. And then finally, our Hanson Road facility, the old FedEx facility. So when we purchased that facility, we had originally intended to complete. There was some construction that needs to be done there in terms of adding fueling stations and bus washes and maintenance lifts and some office space improvements and things like that. We had originally planned to do those kind of in 2 phases. The first phase to do next year, just to do the bare minimum that's necessary, and then explore a second phase to do the rest of it at some point in the future when funding allowed. As part of the Infrastructure Act, over the next 3 years, Metro is expecting an extra $12.5 million in federal formula funds. And so we are proposing to spend those funds on the Hanson Road facility upgrade project, to enable us to get all of that work done in one phase and have a fully operational facility at that point. Again, we're fortunate to have that support from the feds. These are capital dollars. It's not like we could spend them on anything else. Unfortunately, we can't spend them on service, but we can certainly invest in our capital facilities and offset some local capital dollars that otherwise would have had to been spent. So yeah, that's a lot, but happy to take any questions that y'all might have.
So comments or questions for Justin? Denise, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. That was really helpful. I've been out of the office the last couple of days, but I noted a survey came through directed for folks with disabilities and older adults about the redesign. And we've been circulating the surveys as they come through. So before I get ready to send this one out, just curious how the data will be used. Will it be used to help with the plan that goes to TPPB? Will it be used for implementation, used for the equity study? Kind of how's that data going to be influential?
So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Really all the above. I think we certainly want to have any input that we can before the plan is approved, but I still think that information will be valuable after the fact for the final implementation details, and certainly for the equity analysis. The census data that we have on people with disabilities is not quite as robust as we have for income and race.
Right.
And so any additional information that we get through these surveys can help us pinpoint exactly where some of the locations are that are of most concern. And so
good. Related to that, and I can talk with you offline about this, but I serve as the co-chair of the Wisconsin Non-Driver Advisory Committee, which is a WisDOT sponsored working group. And one of the things that we asked WisDOT to do was an ArcGIS showing where the non-drivers exist in using census data and other data. So just wanted to also make sure that you knew about that tool and had access to it as you're continuing to, fine tune the network redesign. It won't tell you disability specific, but it will show where folks who identify as non-drivers exist.
great, thank you. Yeah, I'll make sure to take a look at that.
Great. Yep. I'll send it to you, or if there's somebody else you'd rather me send it to, just let me know.
Yeah, if you want to send it to me, I can make sure it gets to the rest of the team.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Denise, and thanks for your work on that, and thanks for circulating those surveys as well. Is that all you had then, Denise? Okay, Robbie, go ahead.
So you probably updated the committee or commission previously, but maybe I wasn't on at the time. The new fare systems, I'm just curious, are they going to be based on, well, I guess this is a two-part question. Number one, I'm assuming that they're going to be reloadable fare systems in some way. And number two, are you looking at a fare system that people can use their phones to scan? I'm just curious what types of fare systems you're looking at.
Yeah, so the policy and planning board did they approved a policy document, kind of a guiding document for the fare system policy that kind of guided our RFP. Included in that is creating an account-based system so folks can just load dollars into an account and they can tap to ride and basically it just deducts from their account. But as part of that, it will also include mobile payments for using your phone. One thing that we have struggled with a little bit is that the mobile payments, there are some phones that have what's called near field communication capabilities. So basically like Apple Pay works. Those are pretty easy to do, the mobile payments. Without that, you have to use a barcode on the screen of the phone, which really is pretty unreliable and often takes a long time for kind of hunting and pecking with your phone to get the right distance and lighting and everything to get it to read. And so that we're struggling a little bit with, do we allow that or not? Just because we're worried that if too many people use that barcode system, it might be pretty detrimental to our operation. But also as part of that would be creating a fare capping system. So instead of having to buy a pass in advance and spend the $60 some upfront, even if you can't afford that amount of money upfront, you can just tap over and over until you hit a certain limit, and then every tap after that is free. So everyone benefits from the kind of bulk discount, even if you can't afford to pay it upfront.
Okay.
And yeah, there's lots of other things, and I can certainly get you that document.
Yeah. The only reason I asked about the mobile payment was that it was really slick when I was visiting another city to be able to just download the app and not have to get a physical card somewhere. So that was the only reason I was asking, because it seemed really great for visitors. So
yeah, it will include that. It'll also include integration with the UW ID cards, so that students don't have to carry or distribute a separate card. They can just use their existing ID card to tap on.
Okay, thanks.
Denise, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry that I didn't think of this earlier. Robbie's question triggered this for me. So, one of the concerns I always have about these kind of fare systems is the accessibility of the software for folks that use access technology of any form. So, I know that there are, standards by which, you all will be striving. But so often when those are tested using artificial intelligence for accessibility, they'll score okay. And then when real people try to use the system, whether it's app-based or, web-loaded or however it works, then we encounter all sorts of accessibility issues. So if, you're at the point of either looking at vendors and they have models for you to test, and or once a vendor is approved, I'm making an offer to have reach out to our agency and also, of course, City Civil Rights Office to actually have human beings test to make sure that the applications are truly accessible with access technology and not just trust the artificial intelligence.
That's great. Yeah, we certainly will do that.
Okay, thank you for that offer, Denise. Alderman Yadzi, you had your hand up. You took it back down again?
Oh, I actually, I was taking it down because I wanted to remind myself before I left it up for the next half an hour.
Okay.
But, no, I just wanted to commend Justin and his crew for all the work that they've been doing. I know it's been a lot of work, a lot of challenges, and to make sure that it's equitable for the city. But I just wanted to also put a bug in your ear about a couple of things. We could talk about it offline, but I wanted to see that now that we came up with, now we're talking about fair, to make sure that I was dealing with Mick, but I don't know where we fell off at. But I wanted to see if we can actually have different hubs of having that low bus pass income being given out rather than, like the corridor such as East Wash, but like even Warner Park. I know that I was working with Mick as far as to have that as one of the hubs of handing out low buses, especially since this is one of the underserved communities. So,
yeah, he is continuing to work on that. I know that he's identified a couple locations that have agreed to do it. I think he's kind of working with them on final details of exactly how that will work. And I'll make sure that he reaches back out to you once he's got those details figured out.
Okay, it's just been a while. But the other thing too, I wanted to bring to your attention that I'm glad that you spoke about those variables. But I'm wondering, are there going to be public meetings? I know we're having meetings talking about the routes itself, making sure it's equitable and the amendments. But are we going to have one at the end when you guys get done with the variables to make sure that the hours still are equitable? Are we still going to have public meetings for those two, or?
Yeah, certainly. So before that action comes back to the Transportation Commission, I would expect to have or maybe as part of that process, to have both public information meeting and public hearing. So I know that we haven't had any service changes in the last almost 2 years. But the typical policy or procedure at TC to approve these route changes would be to present the material and have a public hearing, and then adjourn and then come back to discuss final approval at a later date. So that I would expect to follow that process, but also since this is just so big, to have an additional separate public information meeting before that to review all the the specifics of the schedule and bus stop locations and all of that. And it may end up being more than one, but certainly at least one.
All right, thank you.
So Justin, we haven't had it happen in a while because of where we are with Metro in terms of schedule changes. But that is the pattern at TC, to have a public hearing before we consider the actual changes, and to do them at separate meetings so that there is, time in between for discussion. But as Justin said, if there's a separate public information meeting, Justin, Mick and others have been really good about making sure that the TC gets information with regard to those meetings. So I'm sure Alder Miazzi will hear about all of those meetings. And I would like to encourage everyone, Chris, you're on and Alder Harrington McKinney, you're both on the Transportation Policy and Planning Board, but TC members do get invitations to those meetings as well. So I think it would be helpful for us, to sit in or view the meeting after the fact if you don't sit in on the policy board discussion here, as well as the upcoming public hearing on, I believe it's the 31st of May. Is that right, Justin?
That's right.
Yeah, so there'll be notice, and I believe you said there's another public information meeting. So, Justin, we can work with Aiden to make sure that I think TPPB automatically includes TC on all of their invitations, but I believe Mick has also been making sure that we get information about all the public information meetings. I know I'm also on your rider distribution, so I get those as well. So I think it's so big. You've had so many meetings. I think you've done just an excellent job getting it out to the community. But I think TC really wants the opportunity to be involved as much as they want to be involved. Alder Harrington McKinney, go ahead.
I just wanted to say ditto, and I wanted to join in and commending Justin and his crew for what they've done. And I'm always looking at public participation, and what I've learned is that public engagement looks differently for who's sitting in at the helm. And those individuals most impacted often don't have their voices heard. And so I know it's up to us as sitting on these various transportation committees to really be, the hand on the shoulder with you, Justin, to make sure that their voices are heard. They may not show up. It's not because they don't care, but life happens to them. And so I challenge myself and also challenge the commitment to this wonderful board to really be the hand on the shoulder and be representative of those individuals who don't have an opportunity to speak and don't have an opportunity to show up. And so I'm sure that we're making that commitment, and please, whatever opportunities there are for us to, I'm from Missouri. I'm a show me state. I mean, you can tell me everything, but I have to see it, I have to feel it, I have to experience it so that I can speak to it. And so when I do that, I can be very passionate about it. But if I don't have those opportunities, I'm not as effective. And that's just kind of how I operate. So I commend you for the work that you've done. And so looking forward to working more with you.
Appreciate that. And if it's okay, there's one thing I forgot to mention.
Sure, go ahead.
Part of my update, so hiring. So as you all know, even before the pandemic, hiring has been a big challenge for us, especially on the driver's side. We're starting to see some significant improvements on that front. We have, I think, out of our almost 300 budgeted positions, we've got about 40 people in training right now. and that's great. And we're continuing to we finally kind of unlocked the key to getting those drivers in the door and through training. And so just want to give you that on the piece of good news. On the bad news side, we're still having a terrible time with administrative staff and supervision, getting people in the door as well as mechanics. And so I just want to apologize in advance if some of my staff is not as responsive as maybe they normally would be or should be. We are all stretched very, very thin, and we're trying to really make the investment of our time in hiring people so that pays off in the long run. But in the meantime, we're struggling. So I just want to apologize in advance. And if you do, if you're not getting responses from my staff in an appropriate time, certainly reach out to me. But appreciate a little bit of patience.
Are there other comments or questions? I do have a follow-up question for you, Justin, but I'll wait till other people have their opportunity. Other comments or questions? You know, Justin, one of the things that your staff has done really well in the past when we had specific proposals for route changes was, and I'm following up Alder Harrington McKinney on what you were talking about, was they gathered email feedback, they gathered comments delivered over the phone and typed them up for us. Sometimes you had focus groups that worked with Alder Miazzi. Sometimes there were focus groups that the Alders and Alder Harrington McKinney that they put together when there were specific impacts like Owl Creek and things like that. So, you know, Metro uses various methods of community engagement very, very well. And it sounds like you're doing a lot of public information meetings. I mean, I can't even count how many you've had, Justin, for the network redesign. It's phenomenal. There are surveys, you know, I know because I took one of the surveys. I know you're sending out surveys and gathering information that way. To Alder Harrington McKinney's point, how are you handling with this massive project the people who only can offer feedback by calling you up and telling you what they think over the phone, or maybe sending an email because that's the best way for them to connect? Or Alder Harrington McKinney, I'm probably leaving out some other ways to communicate that I haven't thought of, but it's such a massive project. And you know, not everybody has all of those tools available to them that we sometimes take for granted. But you all are very aware of that, Justin, and I know that. So I'm guessing that you're taking those into consideration. But how are you going to amass all of this information and then share it?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely hard to aggregate all of that information from lots of different sources, but we are in the process of doing that. Just for reference on the network redesign, yeah, we had over 50 meetings that we've attended, and 50, and we collect the survey response had over 3,000 responses. I don't know the exact numbers, but we received lots of phone calls and emails. Certainly, we're working to compile all this information together so that it's not, you know, overly weighting one data source compared to another. And I think one of the more interesting ones is that we actually have paper surveys on the bus too. I don't know if any of you have been on the bus recently, but we've got basically a binder on the front that allows people to just pull off a piece of paper and fill out a survey and drop it off or mail it in or whatever they want to do. So we've gotten a fairly good response from that as well. So we're obviously there will always be people that we can't reach, and especially in this era of COVID and Zoom meetings, it's that much harder. But I do feel that we've done almost everything we could at this point to get to connect people. I will say the Zoom meetings and in person, our May 19th meeting next Thursday will be in person and virtual, so that people wanting to attend can. Most of our meetings, with some exceptions, have been virtual on the project, which is just kind of the world we live in right now. I would say it's kind of been a double-edged sword. Certainly, the virtual meetings have enabled us to be a lot more places at once. Probably we were able to attend a lot more meetings because they were virtual. For example, right, like we've got Board of Public Works and MPO meetings all tonight, and so we're all kind of pulling double duty and kind of flipping back and forth. But it does mean that those virtual meetings are a little bit harder to engage and have those more one-on-one conversations with people. So, but it's been a bit of a mixed bag. I think we've been able to reach more people, but maybe engage with them a little less in depth.
Well, I do want to commend you, Dustin, because I think Metro has consistently used every conceivable type of public engagement that, at least in my experience, when they're looking at making changes. But I was having a hard time figuring out how you're going to accumulate this massive amount of information that you must have received over time with regard to the network redesign. So, I'll just ask one last question. So, have you connected with the alders to have specific neighborhood type meetings, or is that also been happening as well, Justin?
Yes, so we've reached out and had at least one in every alder district, so I'm really hopeful that the amendments, which I hope to be able to release tomorrow and send to the TPPB in preparation for a Monday conversation. We're still scrambling to dot all the I's and cross all the T's, but I'm really confident that those amendments will address 90% of the comments that we received, while still keeping the network, the original intent of the way the network was designed intact. So certainly there will be some people that still will not approve the plan, but I'm really hopeful that we've designed solutions that address the vast majority of the concerns that we've heard.
Yeah. Again, the point of my questions were to commend you and your staff for the breadth of the public engagement that you've done historically and currently with regard to this past projects and this current project. So obviously a massive effort and really appreciate everything that you've done. Other comments or questions for Justin? You certainly have a lot going on, that's for sure. Okay, thanks a lot, Justin. Yang, did you want to go next?
Thank you, Ann. Sounds great. Yeah. You're probably going to hear some of the similar themes from my report comparing to Justin's report. We're definitely facing some of the same challenges for sure. But I want to give you kind of updates from 3 areas. First, I'll talk about the current staffing and operations, and then I will talk about some of the budget implications and the challenges that we're facing right now. And thirdly, I will give you some updates on the major projects that we've been working with the commission. So first, staffing and operations. So we are in a hybrid mode for staffing. So for office staff, we have a combination of in-person and remote working, according to the approved teleworking plan per city policy. For field staff, it's they don't have the luxury of working remotely, so that's all in person. Unfortunately for them. I think many staff enjoy the hybrid model, but we are definitely shifting to more in-person meetings, things like that. More personal interactions. We're trying to bring back to the to the workforce. We are seeing more and more people on a given day in office now. We still had a few vacancies, and we are having challenges to fill them. So we don't have the lack of just mentioned for the bus drivers. It's getting better, but for administrative and office staff, it's getting worse. We are definitely on the the later end of that. We have seen a lot of challenges, filling the positions due to the tight market. And to be honest with you, I expect that continue to be a problem for us as the inflation is still a problem, and also as the private sector and also some public agencies are raising salaries. Well, we as a city we don't. So there is also lots of money flowing in the industry because of federal spending, which is a good thing, but which means that everybody is competing for people very furiously. So I think that's going to be a challenge that we'll have to deal with for some time to come. And we, among those vacancies, we do have one position that we intentionally keep open as a part of our budget reduction for this year. And but luckily, we do have a new position as well. We got a new position. That's the supervisor position for the electrical field operations, and we're making great progress trying to fill that position. Really trying to bring more support to the overworked group, and give them some relief on that. So that's the current status of staffing. On the operations, we're dealing with some challenges as well. Definitely the labor shortage and current staffing level definitely having create some challenges for us to get all the things taken care of, get all the work done. So trying to be creative on that, be also prioritize on our workflow. So I guess same thing as Justin, that if you experience a delay on response from our staff, please be patient, and but also let me know if there is significant delays on that. We're trying to do our best here. And I think maybe comparing to Metro, we are also facing supply chain disruption issues as we use a lot of materials in our work. And those are getting increasingly difficult to get, and the lead time becomes longer. Some vendors really even are not very motivated to work with us because they have a lot of materials on hand to sell, and we don't naturally are motivated right now. For example, when they need to fill in those affirmative action forms. We offer them, they are less cooperative now than before. And also we're facing inflation. The price, for example, the sign pipe that we're purchasing a couple of months ago, the price was 90% higher than the previous year. That definitely says a lot. And the paint that we're purchasing, that really there's a longer lead time, and there's a lot in stock. And again, vendors are not as motivated as to satisfy our needs as in the past. Talking about inflation, I will transition maybe to second section of my update, which is the budget. I think it kind of ties really well. there definitely is a lot of inflation pressure on us, but luckily we're doing really well on the operating budget side. I think that's largely because we have so many vacancies right now. So we are not paying all the salaries that we budgeted for. On the capital side, that's actually more challenging. As I mentioned, the price increase on materials and also on labor means that all our projects suddenly becomes more expensive than our estimates that we did last year when we come up with a budget. So we're trying to be doing a couple of things, really trying to help on that. One is trying to be very creative to when we go out for bids, trying to give vendors more flexibility, contractors more flexibility, so that they can give us more favorable price. For example, when we give them some work, instead of specify a very tight time frame as we do before, we're trying to be more flexible and give them more flexibility so they can fit in our schedule to be better, so we can get more bidders, and also we can get lower price, because some vendors, some contractors can actually do it as maybe a part of filler work if we stretch out the time frame a little bit longer. Second thing that we're doing is that we're aggressively going after federal grants to make up the for the difference of the costs. So we actually had a pretty good luck with it so far. So far we got 3 safety grants from the Highway Safety Improvements Program, and that's about $3 million. And we also just last Friday we submitted an application for the carbon reduction program for $1.1 million that suddenly become available. But that's a really short timeline to for anyone to make in terms of application and in terms of getting plans, specifics ready. Basically, application is due in a few weeks, and the plans is due August 1st. So almost impossible timeline. But we put our LED conversion project forward for it. So we feel like it fits the carbon reduction program well, and also we think we can make a timeline for that. So really trying to get those federal funds to help make up the cost difference. We also built in a lot of the the considerations for those challenges as we are working on our 2023 budget. So we just submitted our capital budget request a couple of weeks ago, and actually briefed the mayor and the review team last Friday on our capital request, and starting working on the operating budget as well. On that, on our capital request, if you look at it initially, you will think that I'm insane. We are asking for 3 times more money than what we have in the past years. So our budget has become much bigger, and it's our requesting. But there's a really good reason behind that. Actually, it's mostly because we're trying to go after the federal grants that will come with the bipartisan infrastructure law. So we're really trying to be prepared and building that proactively in our budget request, so that we have local match ready if we get a federal grants. So trying to be more competitive on that. For example, we are going after this safety program that's called a Safe Streets and Roads for All program, and that's a 5-year program, and with $1 billion each year to spend over the country. So if we, for that 1 year, if we spread it over 50 states, let's say $20 million per state, we're actually asking for over $11 million of the funds for 2023. Hopefully, we can get it, because I think we are really well positioned for those with our Vision Zero work. As a result, we have a very large budget request compared to previous years. I think we're requesting 200% more in 2023. That's kind of $11 million more, and $45 million more for the next 5 years. Actually, almost all of those increase are anticipated federal grants. And we are also trying to build our budget request, trying to advance the city priorities identified by the community, such as safety and health, through our Vision Zero program, the Safe Streets program, the Public Safety Radio System program, and also climate resilience and sustainability, trying to really to make active transportation better in the city, be more energy efficient on street lighting, also trying to keep racial equity and social justice at the center in our request. Really trying to be very mindful on how we prioritize our projects, and also building some requests to bring town medicine infrastructure to city standards and also to national standards when they become part of the city. I think finally, we are really trying to, when we develop our budget request, we're really trying to position the city to compete for the federal grants that's coming. As I mentioned, I mentioned the Safe Street and the Roads for All program. There's also a couple of programs we are after, such as strengthening mobility and revolutionizing transportation program we call SMART program. As I'm sure as we make progress in the budget process, we'll come back and give commission updates on that. And finally, just really quick updates on a few high-profile projects that the commission has been guide us through. The first one, Vision Zero. We actually reached a few really major milestones on the project. So first, we got our 10-year comprehensive action plan adopted by the council at end of March. That's definitely a big achievement. Lots of efforts has been put into it, including this commission. And many of you actually are quite involved, such as Chris. So thank you so much for all of that. So that's officially adopted, and now we are implementing it. And actually, the adoption of the action plan also actually help us to get the federal funding, because for the program mission, 60% of those will be on implementation, and the requirement is that you have to have a plan in place, like a Vision Zero plan. And we are the only city in Wisconsin who actually has such a plan. So that's why I feel like we can be very aggressive going after those funds. And we are also officially now a Vision Zero city by Vision Zero Network. So that's a national organization that kind of certifies cities on Vision Zero initiatives. And actually, it took a long time because we actually had some disagreements in them on the approaches on Vision Zero. So I think back a couple of years ago, the network totally removed enforcement from their framework. And as you know, that we have been insisting that enforcement has to be part of Vision Zero to improve safety. There definitely are issues with enforcement on equity, for example. But I really believe that we shouldn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. So we can improve this. So we were able to persuade them that we can do this. We can do enforcement in a more equitable manner. Actually, I think they got really impressed with us and saying that this might even be a model for other cities in the country. So I think they're watching us very closely. So now we are officially in, and we are also getting access to other resources, like interacting more with our counterparts in other cities who are doing the same thing. So that's I feel like that's something that's going to be really helpful. Overall, I really feel like our work on Vision Zero are making a profound impact on how we do things, on how we approach safety. I really feel like we are starting to really believe that mobility does not have to come with a heavy price of fatality, and even one death is too many. So I think that's been reflecting in our staff's work. As we become more flexible on things, so I think it's really positive changes that I think that's going to be lasting for many years. And we heard a lot of really good. We heard a lot of feedback from the public. I think you can understand that as we aggressively reducing the speed and aggressively asking people to drive safe, it feels like an attack on people's life, right? It is attack on people's way of being, or people's way of travel. So we can understand that. So that's why we have been getting quite some complaints from folks saying that we're just not being realistic, and that we're going too far. But overwhelmingly, we got so much support from the community that really warms our hearts when we tackle this kind of difficult issues. We also got noticed nationally. I think I've mentioned before, the U.S. DOT Deputy Secretary actually publicly recognized medicine's work at a national event. That definitely means a lot. And the National League of Cities, recently published an article on medicine's work on this as well. And maybe I'll share that with the commission afterwards. So I think we're doing really good work here. Our staff are amazing, and also support from the commission and other committees, the council, the mayor, and the public has been tremendous. So I feel like as a community, we are really making some positive changes here. So that's Vision Zero. Also, really quickly, 20 is plenty. So we are, as you may remember, that we got a citywide project adopted as our last year's budget request for 2022. We are doing a citywide program. But as expected, as the SunPipe cost increased 90%, as the neighbor cost increases, we are facing some budget concerns with the project. So our original estimate we made last year was just a little bit over $600,000 for the whole city. Now it's more than that. So we're trying to. So staff is being very creative, doing some really good work, being very organized on what we ask the contractors to do. So making really some good maps, for example, for the contractors. So and making very detailed tasks. So when they bid it, we want them to know exactly what they're getting into, so they can be confident on their pricing. So hopefully give us a better pricing on those. So we're now spending even more time on the front end and hopefully get better results in the back end. But the beta will go out very soon on that. So we'll have a better understanding on how we are standing on the budget. And as I mentioned, we're also considering federal grants to make up, the shortages if we do end up with a shortage on the project, which I suspect we will have. As finally, I think you are quite involved in this already. The Safe Streets Medicine programs. Thank you for approving 51 projects for this year so far. And I think all but one project is on high injury network. So I think that really reflects the priorities that the subcommittee identified for the program. So, and we are now working on phase 3 of the program, and we hope to bring to the commission sometime in the summer, for later implementation. That's all I have, and so thank you all for the support. I'm ready to answer any questions.
So comments or questions for Yang? Alder Miadzi.
I just wanted to piggyback on what I told Justin too, to Tal, that thanks a lot for all the work that he does, his staff. One thing I can say about Tal specifically is every time I reach out to him, he's very, very responsive. Actually, I think he gives way too much information, but as usual, but that's always a good thing. And I went to National League of Cities in DC where a month ago, and I know that Madison was recognized for their great job as far as Vision Zero and achieving that. And actually, I was there, and when I got an award based on for the city of Madison because of transportation. So I really commend them for all the work that they definitely do. I'm just wondering, how's you guys' morale? Every time I see you, Tal, you're always smiling. I don't know if it's just you got the dimples and this natural smile, but how is really the morale of people in transportation, given that retention, finding drivers, at least drivers get a signing bonus? What is the morale of people around transportation right now?
Thank you, Alder Miadzi. That's a really good question. Actually, I think the morale overall is pretty high. We do have issues that we do have people that's being overworked, and we do have people have all the pressure that created by COVID, medical issues, family issues, and also when you got so many work to do, when we don't have enough people to work on it, sometimes gets pretty stressful, right? When we have a tight time to make. For example, a couple of weeks ago, we have to relocate a very important fiber package out of the way for the Blair Street construction project, and we happened to lost just a week ago, we happened to lost our main fiber person to a private sector. So it has been really, really stressful to get that work done without delaying the whole project. So tensions will arrive, and sometimes people's morale be impacted. So that's we have seen that. We have seen complaints on that. But overall, I think what really helped us is that people work for a salary, right? So of course, they'll be glad to receive a salary increase. They'll be glad to get a higher salary if you go work for somewhere else. And people are glad if their work load is more manageable. But I think what really helps is the meaning of a work. I think most of our works are getting that. What's out there that's more meaningful than trying to save people's lives? What's out there that's more meaningful? That's you are doing things to improving your community. The place you live and how the live you help your neighbors addressing issues. At the meantime, you got supported from the community, and you got to work on the cutting edge projects, challenging projects, and you get professional developed. So I think all those plays a role in the satisfaction of people's job. So I think we are doing really well on that. So I think because of that, I think the morale is quite high. I think people are productive and feel happy about of their work and find meaning in their work.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Sound like you just read your mission statement, but but thank you so much for that for the answer. Thank you.
Other comments or questions for Yang? I just have a quick one, Yang. When is the next phase of Complete Green Streets going to come forward? I think everyone on the commission is anxious to see that guidance translated into policy at some point to help provide some of the guidance that we're hoping to have here that we can use as commissioners as we look at the various projects and have questions on sidewalks and parking and the other hot topics that we hear on most projects. So what is the timing with regard to that?
Yeah, great question on that. So there's definitely a lot of moving parts, but we actually just had a meeting on it yesterday. So the staff team and the consultant team. So we went through a few things, kind of tie up the loose ends on the typology map, some of the overlays that we're working on, and how to present this to TPBB and also to the public. So we are looking at bring the next update to TPBB probably sometime in June. Initially, we were thinking about May, but now we're looking at June, partly because I think some questions are pretty complicated. Another is actually because TPBB agenda will be occupied with transit network redesign for the next 3 meetings, and we don't want to compete with them on that. So we're looking at probably the second meeting in June. We're going to be going back to TPBB for another major update.
Okay, thanks. It's something that I think TC is going to be really interested in watching, Yang, and so appreciate that update. Other comments or questions for Yang? A lot of great work, and leveraging those federal funds that are available is really a great strategy, and I commend you for that as well. I don't believe we have either Tom Lynch or David Wills here to talk about parking. I'm not seeing them in my participants here. Joe, do you see either Tom Lynch or David Wills?
No, I don't see him.
Okay, so we'll have to get updated on parking at a future meeting. So I think that's all that we have relative to quarterly updates. Next on the agenda is update from the Transportation Policy and Planning Board. Either Chris or Alder Harrington McKinney or both.
Yeah, sure. And actually, one of the items at TPBB last time was Tom Lynch's report, and I was checking notes as we were hearing from staff just now. So there is some updates on parking there. I don't recall if folks here know that Sabrina left and they're working on filling her position. So they're stretched pretty thin. So there's other stuff in that report. You can dig it up. I think a lot of that content was covered tonight, but there are some other things in there if anybody's interested. Moving forward with a study to decide where a rail station might be and stuff like that. So I think that's probably the big items. Update on the comprehensive plan, and yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was out of town during the last one, so I'll have to dig through that information and catch up. Anybody have an Alder Harrington McKinney? Did you have anything to add?
No, I was absent as well, so I'll have to do the same thing. And so I'm glad that there's an opportunity for the two committees to share information. So that's very, very important. As things come up, we should be able to share those informations and sign in, because there's a depth of information that we need to be covering in terms of transportation. And I'm specifically looking at what that diversity piece looks like and how do you explain that.
Yeah, great. Well, members are invited to each other's meetings, and so we can watch the agendas and make sure that we view the meeting if we can't participate. So we're trying hard to avoid duplication, but there's a lot of interrelationship for sure. Any other comments?
Madam Chair, I do have one question. Is there an overview? I know that many of you took the diversity training. Has that completed? And so I would really like to hear a summary on what that looked like and those who participated, what their final observations were. So I don't know where we can place that, but that's something that am very interested in hearing.
Sure. We have, Denise and I are working on a subgroup regarding accessibility of the materials for TC and our meetings. And we're going to, our plan right now, Alder, is to combine that with our check-in point on racial equity and social justice, and include the discussion about the diversity training at the June 22nd meeting is our goal. We're looking, it's hard to find a time that works to get our subgroup together because somebody's out of town for 2 weeks. So our goal is to have that on June 22nd so that we can have some discussion. And we'll need to make sure Tom Lynch is available for that. Aiden, if you can just double check and make sure Tom's available for that June 22nd meeting, that would be great as well, because he participated in almost all of those sessions as well. And he sort of was leading the staff charge on that, along with Yang and Gretchen. So that's our plan for the 22nd. Other comments on updates from the policy board? With regard to announcements by the chair, there was a change to the ordinance with regard to the election of officers. So we normally would do that in July, but the ordinance was changed and said that we need to do it before the end of June. So we'll be looking to have our elections at one of our June meetings, depending on how our agendas look. So please be thinking about that. I'm willing to consider going just one more year as chair if people are interested in that, but certainly willing to let somebody else have a turn if somebody else is interested in that position. And Chris, you'll have to give that some thought as our current vice chair as to your thoughts with regard to continuing on, or other people who are interested in that position as well. So just giving people a heads up so they can be thinking about that for the future. And that was all I had, unless anybody else has any other announcements. I don't see any hands up. So lastly, looking at future agenda topics, we have that set for the 22nd, Alder Harrington McKinney, that we talked about. That would be accessibility of TC meetings and materials, and reviewing the Transportation Commission's commitment to include racial equity and social justice in its work. So we'll have that on the 22nd. At least that's our plan right now. And you have a preview of what we're looking at for the next meeting in May, which would be on the 25th. And again, we'll see what if that's ready and what else we have referred from the council. Any other topics that anybody would want to see added to a future agenda that's not shown already or in our work plan? And our work plan will be coming. Justin and I and the rest of the staff have been working on our annual work plan. So that will be coming to the committee, to the commission. I would guess probably not by the end of May meeting, but maybe that first meeting in June. So we'll have an opportunity to discuss that as well. Any other topics? Okay, seeing no hands, do we have a motion to adjourn? Alden Yazzie, and I assume, Robbie, that's a second. And I'm assuming there's no discussion. So we'll assume a unanimous consent vote to adjourn. And thanks, everybody. Great opportunity for us to catch up on some of the things that we'd postponed on our agenda for a while because we were so busy. So thanks for the updates, everybody, and have a great evening.